All right,
So,
let's go.
so here we are with dignity part two, and what I'd really like to talk about is dignity, not just in your family, like we
Hmm.
mentioned last time, but
Hmm.
dignity in society. Don't we live
Okay.
in communities? Don't we live in
Yes, we
societies?
do.
I
Yes, we
mean,
do.
for example, if you live in a condominium or an apartment building,
Right.
do you feel it's dignified if your neighbors are yelling, screaming, throwing dishes against the wall, and causing a lot of noise? Are they being dignified? Do they think that they can get away with that in the privacy of their own homes and that therefore it's okay? Or do you think that they're imposing on you, imposing on your dignity?
Well, I would say that it definitely impose on my own dignity because
Mm-hmm.
of relative lack of privacy. You see,
Right?
living in the city, particularly in high-rise buildings or
Mm-hmm.
high-density areas, you and your neighbors, next door neighbors, are basically separated by pretty much just a wall.
Right.
So if anything goes on next door,
Mm-hmm.
and next door neighbors or people above your apartment or below your apartment, you will
Right.
hear it.
Right.
Yes.
So
So
there's a
not a whole lot of dignity is going on there.
okay. Well, the point is there is a threshold. There's a threshold
Right.
or a dividing line between what you can do in your home and what you can't
That's
do
right.
in your home if you're bothering others.
That's
And
right.
and that's very similar to the concept of freedom. In other words, one of the more mundane definitions of freedom is you have the freedom to swing your fist as long as it doesn't connect with your neighbor's jaw. In other words, you can act in any way you like as long as it doesn't cause damage to somebody else.
Right.
And that's the definition of freedom that we common people, without needing law books, without needing lawyers, we just commonly think like that. In other words, your property, you can build a fence, you can do things like that. But if you're dumping sewage into a creek that therefore is shared by your neighbor, that would be considered undignified. That would be considered an infringement on your neighbor's freedoms,
That's right.
right? Now, if you want to apply that very simple basic rubric to our society today,
Hmm.
we have some problems. We have some
Oh.
serious problems because when we go downtown and we see people who are living in tents
Hmm.
on the sidewalk,
Hmm.
is that dignity? Is that dignified behavior? Those streets belong to all citizens in our community.
Right.
But you can't walk on them because there's somebody living there in a tent, and they might be defecating in the corner, and they might be selling drugs in the evenings, and you can't take your children or your family down there. And why is that? Why have we lost our public dignity, and why does the community allow this? Do we feel powerless? We pay taxes, do we not? We have police.
Yep.
We have
Yep.
government.
Yep.
So how's it possible? How's it possible that those people have the freedom to swing their fist, metaphorically, and hit us with their offensive behavior?
Hmm.
Now, of course, the media talks to us and says that these are poor unfortunates, that they're suffering because they have mental health issues or they
Hmm.
have addiction issues, and that therefore we have to grant them extra leeway. We have to give them a break, and we have to have
Okay.
sympathy for these people because they're suffering from homelessness and hardship,
Right.
and and
Right.
and, and that therefore that we have to just ignore the fact that they're destroying our societal dignity and casting a stain upon us as a community, and that somehow we
Right.
have to accept that. Do you think that's rational or reasonable? that's a metaphorical question, and I don't want you to answer. I don't expect you to
Mm-hmm.
answer because
Hmm.
I'm just saying that metaphorically, and I already have an answer.
Oh,
And here's my answer. Hell
yes, please.
no. We do
Hmm.
not have to accept that. In fact, there's something nefarious going on. And
Right.
I believe that these homeless people who are in this kind of situation are captured. They're captured in some kind of hidden hand that's grasping and holding them for economic gain.
Right.
The drugs that are sold, the police resources that are deployed,
That's right.
the social services
Hmm.
that are needed, the
Hmm.
ambulances that are called.
Hmm.
All of these things cost millions and millions of dollars. And why is that? Why do we have, I'm talking about my hometown here, which is Vancouver. Why do we have in the Vancouver Lower East Side approximately 4,000 people that are generating, and this is by public, calculation, and I can put the link in the description of this video or this
Right.
talk, approximately $1 million a day.
Mm.
$1 million a day in total support services for this community of homeless people living on the streets who have extreme conditions of addiction
Right.
and mental health
Yep.
distress.
Yes.
That's $365 million a year.
Hmm.
Now, can you think of another population of 3,000 people that requires that kind of financial support from our society?
No, I cannot.
No, you cannot. So, do you feel that that's a dignified solution?
Nope.
Do you think there's another solution that could be deployed for that kind of money? But here's the point. Here's the embarrassment part. Here's the
Yeah.
last lack of dignity. It's that we're not even aware of this situation. We're not even given an option to think about it. Instead, we're inundated with a constant barrage of pure propaganda, using our emotions,
Hmm.
stepping on our hearts, and somehow
Hmm.
making us think that this is oh so terrible a problem, and that we just need to have sympathy and compassion and blah 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 blah. Meanwhile, we're spending $365 million a year to help 3,000 people kill themselves on the street.
Hmm.
Sorry, my
Think.
dignity. I'm
I
my
think part of the problem has to do with the fact that due to the fact that we are we are a very complicated society over a matter of decades and not
yes,
generations. Especially living in a city such as Vancouver,
yes,
where uh, city dwellers have a tendency to rely extensively for the local or municipal level of governance
yes.
to control the resource,
Uh huh.
control the distribution of resource of all
Who
kinds.
controls that? Did you vote for that?
I did not. Well, we voted for a
Uh
government
huh.
in hopes that, well, in faith,
Yes.
so that in turn, these personnels
Mm-hmm.
would, on behalf
Okay.
of the
All right. Now, when
citizens,
you have
to
faith,
do the right
yeah,
thing,
when you have faith in someone, let's look at the
right?
faith in your wife, the faith in your
Right?
child, the
Right?
faith in your God, whatever that
Right?
may be. And when that
Right?
faith is broken,
Yep.
do you feel that your dignity has been assaulted? Do you feel
Indeed.
hurt? Do you feel
Indeed.
broken?
Yes.
Well, when our societal faith is broken, when we elect officials who are supposed to be representing us, who are supposed to be helping those less fortunate than ourselves, and when we see that it's obvious that they're not doing their jobs, when it's obvious that our faith in them has been broken, when it's obvious that there's much, much better and much easier solutions to what they're up to, that's an affront to the dignity of our society. That's an affront to the dignity of our community, to which we belong. For example, I'm giving local examples here. There is a organic farm in the Cowichan Valley on Vancouver Island, which is now and has been run for many decades by a group of spiritual people. I'm not going to mention their religion out of respect for their privacy, but they engage in organic farming, and they accept drug addicted individuals to have therapeutic farming experience, where they're given a place to live, and they can work with the earth, and they can grow food, and that food is sold in the community, which more than enough pays for the overhead expenses of taking care of the people who are there for therapy.
Yep.
In other words, the net cost is nil.
Right.
Now, how does that? And by the way, when you graduate from that program, when you've healed yourself from your addictions, they give you a new identity. They give you a new identity and a new address, so you're far away from the place that, encapsulated you in an addictive cycle of despair. And you can change your name legally. They've got a lawyer that works there, so you cannot be traced by your old compadres.
Right.
And they usually resettle you in another part of Canada or anywhere you want in the world. And you know what? They give you $5,000 in your pocket because the organic farm generates a profit. Now, how does that compare to what we see in the communities on the street, in their tents, with social workers making millions of dollars in order to keep them like a captive resource? How does that compare? Now, you tell me, is that a dignified solution to our homeless and drug-addicted community? And who the hell is in charge of this satanic system of depraved human suffering compared to the options that are easily available and are fundamentally provable as effective? And why is this going on? You know why? Because we have lost our control of our society, we've lost control of our democracy, and we've lost control of a dignified relationship between us and those less fortunate than ourselves.
Very well said, sir. Very well said.
Now, most people don't think of that. Most people don't even conceive of that because they're so busy being coerced emotionally by a bunch of nonsense. For example, they used to have a billboard on the bus station of donate $20 and pay for a meal.
Right.
And they put a photograph of some person who's down and out, living on Skid Row, and they say, give us $20 and you know what? We're going to provide a meal for this person.
Right.
But did they explain that only 20 cents of that $20 goes towards the meal?
Nope.
No, the rest goes towards the salaries of the people who are in that organization, who are praying just like wolves on those homeless people. In other words, generating an income for themselves from the misery and the suffering of the least able to defend themselves people in our society because they're drug addicted and have psychiatric problems. Now, is that a form of cruelty? I believe so.
I think so, yeah.
I said it the same as you. Is that a form of exploitation?
It is definitely a form of exploitation.
Is it a form of reversal when we're told that we're supposedly being charitable and sympathetic when in fact the people in charge are being exploitative and manipulative? Yes.
You bet.
It damn well is. And that's the situation we're faced with. And you tell me that that's not a serious problem. In fact, if you look at the so-called medical emergency that we've
Yep.
been under for the last 3 years, and I'm choosing my words carefully,
Hmm.
if you look at the overall death rate statistically in Canada, the U.S., any country you care to choose, you'll find that it's more or less flat.
That's
It
right.
hasn't increased much. Now, there's a slight increase statistically. However, if you care to take out your calculator and compare the slight increase in death rates between 2019 and 2022, and factor in the enormous increase in drug overdose deaths between 2019 and 2022, then drug overdose deaths are extremely larger community health problem than the so-called medical emergency.
That's right.
So why have we spent $22 billion? That's just in Canada. And why have we shut down businesses? And why have we caused untold damage to our children with masks and vaccines? And why have we done all of this for something that's actually a chimera? It doesn't really exist. But what really does exist is a massive increase in drug overdose deaths and human misery on the streets. In other words, it's reversal once again. And our dignity is being affronted and insulted, and we're being dragged through the streets, not dissimilarly to those who live there in their tents. Stop.
Yep.